Hey guys, just going to wait for a couple of people to jump online and then we'll get started with tonight's video, which is a really exciting one for me to be sharing. So I'll just wait for a few to jump online and then we'll get started. I've got the representation of the Earth here. This is our planet in our hands. Hey Jonathan, hey Bev, I'm just waiting for a couple of people to jump on before we get started. We've got some very interesting information for us all tonight. And it all boils down to this thing, the Earth, and what we're doing to it, what we need to be doing for ourselves, for our planet, and for our children and our children's children. So, am I transmitting okay? Can you hear me, Bev? Or Jonathan? Or Donna? Can you guys hear me out there? Hey, Donna. I was just waiting for a couple of people to jump on and then I'm going to get started. But I've got a really important video tonight. Lots of very important and valid information for anyone in this freedom movement who is seeking more information to defend themselves against the tyranny that is this current government in exile that is running this country into the ground. So yeah, we have some amazing information. Hey Daniel, hey Luca. So basically I'm going to talk about the freedom of human beings, where does our power come from and what enforces it at law. I'm going to speak about some of the laws that I have found in my own research and some that's I've been directed to. Basically the power of a human being and the rights of a human being is something that you receive or that is inherent with your birth. So when you are born, sorry, not birth, when you are born with inherent natural rights. And believe it or not, they are much more extended than that which is being granted to us or given to us or allowed for us to live our lives. Our rights are actually much more larger, much more encompassing, and we have the rights to do much more than what we're doing. So I'm going to talk about, I'm going to talk real quickly about the preamble of the Constitution and what constitutes our Constitution, how it came to be. I'm going to talk about I'm going to talk a little bit about sovereignty and my sovereignty, and I'm going to talk about the 1901 Acts Interpretation Act. And this is the act that basically governs all other acts in this country. And that act was prepared on the 4th of December 2009, but it's a 1902 act, I believe. Hmm. 1901. And we're going to talk a little bit about the Police Regulation Act and the police powers. What are police powers by definition? Do they have the powers they claim? And that's an absolute no. And if we get time, I'm just going to talk on Donald Trump's inaugural speech that he did, if we get time. And I'm also going to talk briefly at the end about steps we can take in order to quash and rise above these summary offences that are being brought to us in the name of the private individuals who are serving them. So first thing I want to talk about is the preamble of the Constitution. And why I'm talking about the preamble of the Constitution, because this is what constitutes this law, this Constitution. This is what constitutes the law of our land. And it cannot be taken away without a referendum, without all of the people in this country voting for that. So the preamble of the Constitution states, whereas the people of New South Wales, Victoria, South Australia, Queensland and Tasmania, humbly relying on the blessing of Almighty God, have agreed to unite in one indissoluble federal commonwealth, under the crown of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland, and under the Constitution hereby established. And whereas it is expedient to provide for the admission into the Commonwealth or other Australasian colonies and possessions of the Queen, be it therefore enacted by the Queen's most excellent Majesty, by and with the advice and consent of the Lords spiritual and temporal and Commons in this present Parliament assembled, and by the authority of the same as follows. And I just want to touch on one word in that is really important for people to understand what this word means. And that word comes after it speaks about who the people are. It says we are humbly relying on the blessing of Almighty God, and that we have agreed. So I think that's pretty clear what agreed means. We all know what agreed means. So what that means is that before this Constitution came into effect, all of the people of this country agreed, being in their self-governing or sovereign capacity, agreed to allow the institution of the Constitution in order to govern the government. That is the role of the Constitution. The Constitution is not there to govern the people. It is there as a guideline, as a law. That is what binds the Parliament. That is what binds our government. They are bound by our Constitution because we agreed to the Constitution. We said, all right, we're going to allow a government, but the government is subject to this Constitution and they must abide by this Constitution unless there is a referendum to state otherwise, which there has not been. So this is one of the most important documents in the land, and that is because it governs the government. It does not govern you, the people, if you're a sovereign or if you're one of the people. That's not what it's there for. The sovereign decrees the law. The sovereign makes the law. And he does that by putting in a writ to a court. If something he doesn't like happens, he puts a writ into the court or makes a complaint to the police or a public officer, I should say. And then a process is started in court. It's then decided upon by a jury of 12 people. And if those 12 people, or majority of, decide that law should be put in place, then it's put in place. If not, then it's not put in place. So it's up to the people. It is all about the people making the laws. Sovereignty. Before I read my affidavit of my sovereignty, which I completed the other day, I just want to read a couple of things. Article 2 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which Australia is signatory to, in accordance with the Australian Oxford Law Dictionary. It says, everyone is entitled to all the rights and freedoms set forth in this declaration, without distinction of any kind, such as race, colour, sex, language, religion, political or other opinion, national or social origin, property, birth or other status. Furthermore, no distinction shall be made on the basis of the political, jurisdictional or international status of the country or territory to which a person belongs, whether it be independent, trust, or non-self-governing, or under any other limitation of sovereignty. And the reason I'm reading these two instruments out to you is because someone said to me that not to talk about sovereignty and not to be a sovereign because it would be really bad for me. Now, unless that person is writing the laws, he has absolutely no right to tell me that. And unless that person himself is a sovereign, he has no right to decree the law. So he's basically standing on nothing except his word. So if he wishes to decree that law, then he must put that through a court. It's got to go through a jury, and then it's got to be decided upon. Which it can't be, because we also have the International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights, which Australia is also signatory in accordance with the Australian Oxford Law Dictionary. Part 1, Article 1, Line 1, all peoples have the right of self-determination. That means you have the right to be a sovereign. That is the first thing, the very first line of the International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights. And it's also the very first line on the other covenant which I have, and I can't remember the name of, which Australia is also signatory to. So all of these major covenants and declarations are stating that any person has the right to be a self-governing or self-determining. Okay, so all people have the right of self-determination. By virtue of that right, they freely determine their political status and freely pursue their economic, social and cultural development. Number 2, all people may, for their own ends, freely dispose of their natural wealth and resources without prejudice, that means without giving up any rights, to any obligations arising out of international economic cooperation, based upon the principle of mutual benefit and international law. In no case may a people be deprived of its own means of subsistence, or existence, I would say. And number 3, the states parties to the present covenant, which includes this one, including those having responsibility for the administration of non-self-governing and trust territories, shall promote the realisation of the right of self-determination. Let me just say that again. Shall promote the realisation of the right of self-determination. So what that says is that actually it should be promoted that people become sovereign. It should be promoted that people are self-determining. It should be promoted that people are not relying on the system. And shall respect that right in conformity with the provisions of the Charter of the United Nations. It's a really good document. I highly recommend anyone downloading it and reading it. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights. And I'm just going to read out my affidavit, which is a statutory declaration of sovereignty. I, Lucas Charles of the family Nicholson, domiciled upon the terra which is deemed to be my address, in the state which is deemed to be Victoria, do solemnly declare as follows. And the reason why I put which is deemed is because that means that it is not in actual fact, but it is just deemed to be that. It's not by law that, it is just by prima facie evidence deemed to be that. Number 1, I am the claimant herein, also known as Lucas Charles Nicholson, a person. I am lawfully authorised to make, swear and oppose this declaration herein. I am one of the people, domicile upon the terra which is deemed to be Australia, and in accordance with law I am in fact sovereign. In accordance with, but not limited to, Part 1, Article 1, Section 1, Paragraph 1, Line 1 of both the International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights, 1966, and the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, 1966, including Articles 2 and 13 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, 1948, of which Australia is signatory. 4. I have knowledge of the matter, and that the statements in the claim contained are, to the best of my knowledge and belief, true in substance and in fact. 5. The sovereign name of the man is not on any public grounds objectionable, and that it is not that of any known company, incorporated or unincorporated, or of any partnership or individual, or any name under which any known business is being carried on, or so nearly resembling the same as to deceive, with exception to the aforementioned person, also known as Lucas Charles Nicholson, which is deemed to be one and the same human body, the man. 6. As there is no person or people withstanding in respect to this matter who is or shall be in a position to object, this declaration is indefeasible, valid and effective as of this 13th day of August in the year 2018 4th. 7. I am informed and of full age of 34 years and have power under law to contract, and that my name and description have been accurately set out in the preamble thereto. This is the instrument. For anyone who would like to take a screenshot, or I recommend that you go through the words yourself so you understand it if you're thinking of writing this or making one of these. Now, I've got it notarized by a notary of the public, and the reason why I get it notarized by a notary of the public, and the only reason I do that, is so that I can use that in any court within this country or any other country. And so a notary of the public gives us it gives the instrument authority or jurisdiction in international courts. Now, some of the lower courts in this country are international jurisdiction, in my belief. So unless it's done by a notary of the public, they may reject to even look at any instruments that aren't notarized by a public if it's an international jurisdiction court within this country. And before I did this declaration, I did I completed and had notarized a document or an instrument, which was an enduring power of attorney from my corporation or my fiction to the man. So I gave the man authority to act on behalf of the corporation, and that is notarized. That is a lawful document and instrument, which gave me the authority at law or to create this document. Sovereign, just a couple of the definitions. The supreme repository of power in a political state. The sovereign is not himself bound by the law, since the law is what he declares it to be, unless he breaks the law. The only time that any corporation or anyone can have or claim jurisdiction over you or your sovereignty or your sovereign capacity is if they have a corpus delicti, which is an injured party. If they don't have an injured party, they have no jurisdiction over you. They will claim to have jurisdiction, and they will put in a summons or something into a magistrate's court, and basically you've got to put in a writ of habeas corpus first of all into the superior court to move your body out of custody of that court into the higher court or the superior court. And the superior court, by the way, is being run by you. Anytime you are in a superior court, it is you running the court, and it is you that must put the motions forward and enact all the basically you've got to put all the orders in and finalise them yourself. Don't expect if you open up a court of record, you are taking charge of that court, and it is you who is running that court. So you have to put everything in place to make that happen, and you've got to give the judge the ability to basically sign off on that. So it is your court. Sorry, not to sign off on it, because you sign off on it, but the judge is there, but he has no jurisdiction. If you look up what a court of record actually means, unless there is a corpus delicti or an injured party, then the other person has jurisdiction. And you can't claim sovereignty or you can't claim jurisdiction as a defendant. You must appeal first, and then you can claim your sovereignty, because you can't do it as a defendant. Another thing here, the true sovereigns of a country are those who determine its modes of thinking. I like that one. Here's a good example of sovereignty. So basically, political unit possessing or held to possess sovereignty. a controversy between two sovereigns, such as the United States on the one hand and the state of California on the other hand. And the reason I bring that up is because the United States itself is itself a sovereign, but California is also claiming its sovereignty apart from the United States because it no longer wants to be a part of that because it sees what's going on. That's why California is having such problems at the moment. But that's another issue. And some more for sovereignty. I've got the Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition here. I received this in the mail a few days ago. I got so excited. And the lady in the post office couldn't really understand it, but I got it, and that was all that mattered. A sovereign, by definition, in the Black's Law Dictionary, a person, body, or state in which independent and supreme authority is vested, a chief ruler with supreme power, a king or other ruler with limited power. A chief ruler with supreme power, or a king or other ruler with limited power. That means that you, the sovereign, has the supreme power above anyone else. Think about that for a minute. State. What's a state? A lot of people think when you say the term state that you're talking about, this made-up fiction of jurisdiction that these police claim to have. Well, that's not what a state is. It may be part of that, or that may be one definition, but the one here I want to point out from the same dictionary is the circumstances or condition of a being or thing at a given time. Well, I'm a being. It is the state of my being. So yes, I am a state also. So that's sovereign. Supreme comes from Latin super, above, and it is superior to all other things. And that's enough on sovereignty. Now we're getting into the interesting part, which is the 1901 Acts Interpretation Act. I've got well, I did have somewhere in there. Anyway, I've just printed out a few pages from the Acts Interpretation Act 1901, which was where is it? Which was last prepared on the 4th of December 2009. So it is very relevant. It is not old. It is very much in play. And what actually gives it its authority. The commencement of the Act. When the Act was commenced or assented to, which I'm going to get into shortly. And I'm also going to talk about other acts that are not assented to and why they are not valid in accordance with the Acts Interpretation Act. And this is the act that governs. This is the act that gives us the, it governs the other acts. It tells us what the other acts are there for and if they are valid or not. But the first thing that I found in here, which really interested me, was Section 33. Good old 33, my life path number, one of my favourite numbers. Section 33, subsection 1. Where an act confers a power or imposes a duty, and we're going to get into what a power is, because some people have a lot of people have a common misconception about what the term power actually means. So where an act confers a power or imposes a duty, then, unless the contrary intention appears, the power may be exercised and the duty shall be performed from time to time as occasion requires. Unless the contrary intention appears. So you writing a writ of error to a company who is pursuing you may just be the contrary intention that's required. I would suggest it would be. So by arguing that which is wrong, you are expressing contrary intention to this act, or to that act, to whatever act it is that you're expressing that to. So that is section 33, subsection 1. Subsection 2a, where an act assented to after the commencement of this subsection provides that a person, court, or body may do a particular act or thing, and the word may is used, may being, in this one, they really emphasize the word may. And there's a reason for that. Because in a lot of their acts, they use the word, especially in the Police Act or whatever act, they use the word, the officer may do this. And what that means is at his own discretion, or it could mean he has the authority. But most of the time, they're just acting at their own discretion or arbitrarily. So, where an act assented to after the commencement of this subsection provides that a person, court, or body may do a particular act or thing, and the word may is used, the act or thing may be done at the discretion of the person, court, or body. What that means is they don't have any, if they're doing it at their own discretion, they don't have the backing of the law, which leaves open for recourse, for anyone to sue them. Where an act confers a power or function or imposes a duty on a body, whether incorporated or unincorporated, the exercise of the power or the performance of the function or duty is not affected merely because of a vacancy or vacancies in the membership of the body. Subsection 3. So section 33, subsection 3, where an act confers a power to make, grant, or issue any instrument, including rules, regulations, or bylaws, the power shall, unless the contrary intention appears, be construed as including a power exercisable in the like manner and subject to the like conditions, if any, to repeal, rescind, revoke, amend, or vary any such instrument. Exercisable in the like manner. So they're not saying it's exercisable in that manner, in the manner of law. They're saying it's exercisable in the like manner, which means it's not lawful. And the contrary intention is a written objection or a writ of error. We've spoken about that. Basically what that's saying is, if any person or anyone objects by a form of writ of error or whatever they choose to send, whatever instrument it may be, if they object, then that act shall, whoever they're objecting to shall consider making a provision in order for that person or body making that contention. And that is the Acts Interpretation Act. That is what governs the other acts. And this is this has royal assent. Alright, still in the same act, the Act Interpretation Act 1901, Section 8A, implied repeals. And a repeal is the removing of a certain law. Section 8A, subsection B, the abrogation or limitation of the effect of the act or part, and, a reference in section 7 or 8 to the repeal of an act or of a part of an act includes a reference to the abrogation or limitation of the effect of the act or part, and the exclusion of the application of the act or part to any person subject matter or circumstance. So the exclusion of the application of the act to any person, and that's under implied repeals. So if you put in if you contest those charges because they're not lawful and there's no corpus delicti or injured party, then or if you don't agree to it and you let them know in writing because for whatever reasons you have at law, you put that obviously in there and send that forward. But that is a implied repeal. Authority of the act. This is important. This is the application of this act. Part 1, Section 2, subsection 1. Except so far as the contrary intention appears, this act applies to all acts, including this act. Just in case there was any doubt of what I was saying before. Subsection 2. This act shall bind the Crown. And the word shall is synonymous with the terms imperative or mandatory. This act shall bind the Crown. This is the 1901 Acts Interpretation Act. I'm going to read out section 5 here because this is really important, and the reason it's really important is because when we look at this act, the Acts Interpretation Act that binds all other acts and binds the Crown, and it has a date on it with the royal assent, and then we look at these other acts such as the Road Safety Act 1986, where it says section 2, commencement, this act, including the items in Schedule 3 and the amendments in Schedule 4, comes into operation on a day or days to be proclaimed. That means this act, unless there is a proclamation certificate, is not valid. Any person out there, including you, can write up any act you want and you can put it out there and go righto, and that's what they're doing. Exactly that, because there is no proclamation. It hasn't been, there's no assent. It's just a piece of paper being enforced by people that have no idea what they're doing. Actually, they're breaking the law. And it's the same with the Local Government Act 1989. I think this is the Victorian one. I can't remember if this is Victoria or New South Wales. Anyway, the Local Government Act 1989, Section 2, subsection 1, commencement. This act comes into operation on a day or days to be proclaimed. The proclamation or proclamations made under subsection 1 must be made on or before 1st of July 1990. Alright, so this Local Government Act has absolutely zero authority over the sovereign. It has authority over the people that are consenting to it and agreeing to it because they're not disagreeing with it. But it has, well, it doesn't really, but, you know, I'd like to think it does. But anyway, it's just a piece of paper. It has no authority without that proclamation. And unless that's provided, then you use that 1901, you use that same one we were just reading, and you say, well, hang on a moment, because this 1901 Acts Interpretation Act, Section 2, subsection 1, except so far as the contrary intention appears, this act applies to all acts, including this act, and this act shall bind the Crown. And here we go, commencement of acts, Section 5, subsection 1. Every act to which the royal assent has been given by the Governor-General for and on behalf of the King on or before 31st of December 1937 shall be deemed to have come into operation on the day on which that act received royal assent, unless the contrary intention appears in the act. Subsection 1A. Every act other than an act to alter the Constitution to which the royal assent is given by the Governor-General for and on behalf of the King on or after the 1st of July 1938 shall come into operation on the 28th day after the day on which that act receives the royal assent, unless the contrary intention appears in the act. Subsection 1B. Every act to alter the Constitution to which the royal assent is given by the Governor-General for and on behalf of the King on or after the 1st of January 1938 shall come into operation on the day on which that act receives the royal assent, unless the contrary intention appears in that act. Every act reserved for the signification of the King's pleasure thereon shall come into operation on the day on which His Majesty's assent is proclaimed in the Gazette by the Governor-General, unless the contrary intention appears in such act. So that's Section 5 of the Acts Interpretation Act 1901, and that is which every other act is bound by, and the Crown is bound by, must have royal assent. Evidence of date of assent or proclamation. This is Section 6. The date appearing on the copy of an act printed by the government printer and purporting to be the date on which the Governor-General assented thereto or made known to the King's assent shall be evidence that such date was the date on which the Governor-General so assented or made known the King's assent, and shall be judicially noticed. So when we're looking at the Local Government Act 1989 or the bloody Road Safety Act 1986, and it's not giving us a date where it's been enacted, that's because it hasn't been enacted. It's just toilet paper. Unless people consent and decide that they want to keep forking out, tax exactions. They want to keep paying these people for no reason, and that's fine. That's their right as well. And I'm not here to get in the way of anyone who wishes to do that. Please carry on doing that, and good luck. Next thing I want to talk about, and I just want to make this clear, I'm going to talk quickly about the Officers' Rights Declaration, 1928. Section 4, paragraph 4, and this is the definition of officer in accordance with their Officers' Rights Declaration. Officer means an officer employed as or as a member of or by a Commonwealth authority who immediately prior to his employment was an officer of the public service of the Commonwealth. I hope that's clear to everyone. If it's not, what they're saying right there is that the people who are becoming police in this country, as we've said before, what they're doing is they are swearing in as an officer of the public service of the Commonwealth, and then immediately following, they are becoming an officer employed as or as a member of or by a Commonwealth authority, which is there's two Commonwealths, don't forget, who immediately prior to his employment was an officer of the public service. And police officers of the public service, they don't get paid by the Crown. We know this because of the Oxford Law Dictionary. That's what it tells us. We know that the police, when they are issuing a summary offence, they are issuing it as a private person, principally. They are issuing it as a private person because they have no authority to do that as a public officer or public service officer of the Commonwealth. So that's a really important one. And it really tells us right there that the police are acting as corporate pirates and not as a public servant, as they were sworn in to do. They were sworn in to act as a public servant, and sometimes they may act in that capacity, but majority of the time, especially the highway patrol and all those fleas, you see them, they're acting as a corporate pirate. So they've sworn themselves in, and now they're actually using that uniform to be a corporate pirate, or to take your money away through tax exactions, which is what they all are. And that in itself is actually an offence under the 1914 Crimes Act, Section 75, and it carries with it a penalty of up to 2 years imprisonment. And I have a police officer who has charged me with a summary offence recently, and I will be explaining to him in a letter or correspondence why it is that I won't be paying those exactions, and why it is, and I want him to explain to me why I shouldn't proceed to charge him as acting or personating a Commonwealth officer. So I look forward to my correspondence with that constable. And now we're going to get into police power. What is power? What is police power? What is the definition of it? And before we do that, I'm just quickly going to go through the Police Regulation Act 1928, Section 10, which is the authority of a constable. It's funny, they've got one paragraph talking about the authority of a constable here, and they've got about 4 pages talking about their benefits after they leave the force. Anyway, every constable shall have such powers and privileges and be liable to all such duties as any constable duly appointed, meaning in both jurisdictions. Hope you can see what's going on. Any constable duly appointed now has or thereafter may have, either by the common law or by virtue of any act of Parliament. There you go, there's a distinction, an absolute distinction between the common law or an act of Parliament. 2 different things. The common law is your sovereign rights. An act of Parliament is an imposition of unlawful taxes and unlawful rules. So, every constable shall have such powers and privileges and be liable to all such duties as any constable duly appointed now has or hereafter may have, either by the common law or by virtue of any act of Parliament now or hereafter, to be in force in Victoria. And any member of the police force of higher rank than a constable shall have all the powers and privileges of a constable, whether conferred by this act or otherwise. Wow, what is a power? Actually, I'll just quickly talk about these 2. Section 11, every person appointed to be a member of the force must be able to read and write, and any person who has been convicted of an indictable offence, or who is the servant of any person. Anyone who has a debt is a servant. If you have a debt, you are a servant to that person. So any police officers out there who have a mortgage, a debt to a bank, who serve a superior officer, who, say if you're a constable and you are taking orders from a sergeant, you are serving him. Because we know also from the Oxford Australian Law Dictionary that the definition of a police officer is someone who acts independently. They're independent. They're not told what to do. And Section 15, if any question arises as to the right of the Chief Commissioner or other member of the force to hold or exercise the duties of his office, common reputation shall be deemed prima facie evidence of such right, and it shall not be necessary to have or produce any written appointment or other document or matter whatsoever in proof of such right. And I haven't checked if this act actually has the royal assent or not. I'm not sure. But basically, prima facie is the prevailing idea before the curtain's been lifted, before people know what's actually going on. It's just the idea that people think. And common repute is the reputation of the commoners. Everyone thinks the police are lawfully enacted, but they're not. So they have this common repute. So they're using the minds of the public and the belief of the public to be their prima facie evidence. It means it's got no basis in law, but because people believe it and keep agreeing to it, then that's the way it is. So they have no authority at law at all. They have no extra authority above you or I. They have none. Just because they carry a weapon and a badge and wear a uniform so that they can conduct their criminal activities does not make them a legitimate police officer or Commonwealth public servant. So what is the power? What is the power? Every constable should have such powers and privilege. Well, what is power? Sorry I'm not going through the comments. I will go through them at the end, but I'm trying to get through it because there's a lot of information here. But power, this is from Black's Law Dictionary 4th edition. It is the right, ability, faculty, or right or ability or faculty of doing something and authority to do any act which the grantor might himself lawfully perform. Authority to do any act which the grantor himself might lawfully perform. What that means in itself is that the power that we, the people, give to the police is the same power that they have. They have no extra power than what we give them. Authority to do any act which the grantor, we are the grantors, we grant them that power because of the common repute or the prima facie evidence. We grant them that power. We are the grantor. So they have the authority to do any act which the grantor might himself lawfully perform. Okay, so power. First word of power is right. Now there's a few different definitions to the word right. And the right that I believe they're talking about is a right in rem. A right in rem is a right in rem is one which imposes an obligation on persons generally or society enforced by police, as opposed to a right in personam, which is one which imposes an obligation as a definite person. So we all have rights in personam. The right that the police are acting on under their power is a right in rem, which imposes an obligation on them to act in accordance with their oath. They are the ones under obligation under the court of in accordance with the right of rem. Ability. This is also another synonym of power. Ability, meaning they have the arms and the legs and the voice. They can write up these things. They can do these things because they have the ability to do it. They may not have the lawful authority to do it, but they have the ability. Faculty, which in ecclesiastical law is a license or authority, a privilege granted by the ordinary to a man by favour and indulgence to do that which by law he may not do. A privilege granted by the ordinary, that would be us, to a man by favour and indulgence to do that which by law he may not do. I can't interpret that one, but pretty self-explanatory, I think. An ability. Black's Law Dictionary of Ability, which is a synonym of power. When word is used in statutes, it is usually construed or put together as referring to pecuniary or monetary ability, as in the construction of Tenterden's Act. I haven't read that, Tenterden's. But basically, when they're talking about ability in a statute or power in a statute, it is referring to the grabbing of money, taking of your money. So right, police power. So that's what the power is. The right, ability, or faculty of doing something. And they may just be acting arbitrarily in their ability to do that. And majority of the time, that's what they're doing. They're just using the power or their ability to do such a thing. As we saw before in the Acts Interpretation Act, the word may came out, and that was a really important one. They may do that. Well, what's the definition of may? I'm just going to read it straight out of Black's Law. Definition of may. An auxiliary verb qualifying the meaning of another verb by expressing ability, competency, liberty, permission, possibility, probability, or contingency. So when it says in any act that a person may do this, it's possible that they're going to do it. And it's also possible that if they do it, they're acting arbitrarily and unlawfully, and you have a right to recourse and to sue them. Just because an act says they may do something doesn't give them permission to do it. It doesn't saying that they must do it or they shall do it. It's just saying they may do it. There's a big difference in those words. And this is where they're really... This is how they're really dominating this legal space, is because of the words and the deliberate, basically diseducation or non-education of what actually words mean and what are their definitions. And we're taught to basically in this society to speed read. We're taught to just look at things and just, get a brief, understanding of a page. Like if you speed read a page, like if I open up this book and I speed read one page, it might take me, I don't know, probably not speed reading, it might take me 5 minutes. I'm a pretty slow reader. But if I read that, and in order to understand that one page, it might take me weeks to go through every single word or that I don't understand, because every single word that I don't understand has an absolutely has its own meaning, has its own definition, and that definition is not the same as common language. Common language and legal language are two completely separate things, and the same word may have completely separate meanings. So it's really important that we understand what the words mean. That's almost about it. So if you're being charged with something, which I have been recently, a summary offence, and if you need to, what I'm going to do is basically I'm going to correspond with the constable who is proceeding with the summary offence and let him know my intention of what I'm going to do. Let him know that I'm going to put in a writ of habeas corpus ad respondendum to the Superior Court, so that I can regain jurisdiction, so that I can take the person out of the custody of the lower court up into the Superior Court, which is my court. And then once I take it up into my court, it's up to them. Then I gain jurisdiction. But if I'm in their court, I don't have jurisdiction because I'm the defendant. When I take it into my court, I become the accuser, and they are the defendant, and they must answer. So I say to them, okay, well, what's your jurisdiction for this summary offence? What jurisdiction are you claiming? Where's the corpus delicti? Where's the injured party? And that's pretty much all I need to say. And if they don't come back with that evidence, then I will put a motion forward to dismiss the case. And then once I've dismissed the case, I'll put in either a writ of error, no, I should do that before I dismiss, sorry. Once I've dismissed the case, then I will write to the constable and let him know. I'll send him a notice of intention to proceed, let him know what I'm going to do and why I'm going to do it, including all the relevant acts and sections and precedents as to why I am right and he is wrong and acting outside or acting under colour of his uniform, but he's acting unlawfully. And I'm going to let him know how I know that. And basically, I'm going to do that through my notice of intention to proceed. And I can also basically negotiate with him. If he wishes to cover my costs at this point, then I'll negotiate with him and he can either cover my costs before we take it to court. Otherwise, I'll put in a writ of mandamus and I'll charge him with all of the following charges in accordance with the 1914 Crimes Act and whatever other act I find. So he will be charged, and I will be the one charging him, and I will be doing it in a superior court, a court of record, which I will be conducting myself in a court. But basically, it'll all be in the paperwork. I don't plan on standing in front of a judge or a magistrate. I will if I have to, but I plan on doing it all in the paperwork before it even gets to that point. But if it's required to go to that, I'm happy to do that, and I'd really like the experience. I think that would be quite exciting. I have represented myself a couple of times actually. Once in the International Hague Convention case for my daughter, and also once against the police for some false charges they put together. And it's actually really fun being in the courtroom and having a police officer sitting in the box and questioning that person, and really making them accountable for their actions. And because everything they say in there is on record, it is a court of record and it is recorded. And then once I've done that, once I've gone through, I'll put in the order of the charges, and he'll pay it or he won't pay it. Regardless of whether he pays the fine or not, or the costs or not, the important thing is to get all of the information into the court, to get all the paperwork in and have it there. And then the precedents are set, and it's in writing, it's there. So we just need to keep doing this and doing this and doing this. And I'll probably do something similar with my counsel, who continue to send me letters asking me for money. Even though the Oxford Law Dictionary says the state has no authority to tax land that's the primary residence, why are they charging me $1,000 a year for land tax when they have no authority? The state has no authority. What are they doing? And also, when you're writing to these people, let them know your charges, let them know your costs. So my fees, basically at the moment, I'm charging $666 per hour for my services and costs. So if they wish to engage with me in a suit, it's going to cost them personally $666 per hour for my time. That's what it's worth to me. I think that's fair. I think that the going rate for unlawful imprisonment is about $50,000 a day. So $666 an hour really isn't that much when you think about it. You can also put in, if you want to write something to your council or to whatever company or corporation is harassing you, you can put in a petition for dissolution. It's really important that we put in these before we take them to court, we need, well, I'm going to put in a petition for dissolution, so that they know that I know who I am and I know who they are. I know my rights. I know their powers and their authority, and their lack of powers and authority, and I'm letting them know I'm dissolving this contract, or this lack of contract, because there is no contract. I am dissolving it, because in my authority, I have the authority to do that. And then if they decide to not agree to that or acquiesce to that, if they decide to fight it, then I'll take them to the Superior Court as well, which is my court. Yeah, I think that's about it. I was going to talk about Trump's inaugural speech, but I think that's enough at the moment. I might do it another day. But basically that guy is a wordsmith, and he obviously they have a team of people that write up his speeches, and he probably doesn't even understand what he's saying half of the time, or he might, I'm not sure. But you know, when I listened to his inaugural speech, yeah, I'll do another video on that anyway, because I'm sure there's going to be more stuff about that dude. But that's sort of it. I might go through the question, or the... Oh yeah, please share. Thanks Elizabeth for sharing. Please share. This is the only forum we have for getting this information out. I will upload it to YouTube and repost it to one of my pages. Mandy Lee's no common sense in a common law court. I'm not sure what that means, Mandy. Hey, Ollie. Jesse, thank you. Hey, Anthea. Veronica. Our civil rights and liberties are being banished by these so-called police, and you are the first person I see with any initiative to share these seriously scary issues. Thank you. I will be sharing. I'm not good with touch phones. I will be sharing this. Thank you, Veronica. Yeah, you know, there's a lot of people out there in this so-called freedom movement that I've discovered, and there's a lot of really helpful, amazing people out there who I'm very grateful for information they have shared with me. Thank you to all you people. You know who you are. But sometimes I feel like they forget that this is about freedom. It is a freedom movement. It is about sovereignty. It is about freedom. It's not about money. It's about freedom for the people. And some people try to tell me what to do or not to do, you know. And as soon as someone tells me in a freedom movement what to do and what not to do, then to me, immediately that person is not fighting for freedom or anything. They're just basically trying to reinforce the current dictatorship that we already have. We have enough of people telling us what to do. We don't need any more people telling us what to do. We are sovereigns. We tell ourselves what to do. So if anyone does tell you what to do in this movement, be sure to question them. And if you have if what you're saying you know to be true and right, then you probably are right, because the law is there to protect the right, and lies are there to protect the wrong. So anytime you sense a lie, then it probably is a lie. You know, I get these people that will come up. You know, I'll be conversing with someone, and these people will come up and they'll just go, "Oh no, that's wrong. No, oh no, that's wrong." And I'm like, "Okay, well, can you tell me how it's wrong? Like, where can I find what you're saying? You know, in the law." Like, "Oh no, it's just wrong." It's like, well, you know, you don't know what you're talking about, mate, or you're just flat out wrong, or you're flat out lying, and a flat out devil. So, you know, I don't have time for that. The beautiful thing about you know, most people that are interested in this stuff is they're also very empathetic and they can feel other people's energy and they have these instincts. So I really encourage people to trust their instincts and listen to their body when they're around people who are giving them information. Trust your instincts, listen to yourself, and do your own research. That is the only way that you are truly going to empower yourself. You know, we can listen to these videos all day, all night, and there is some amazing information out there. But ultimately, if we wish to be free, you know, we're going to have to start reading or get enough people together that, you know, that understand what some people are saying and offering, and get enough people together and come together as a group and move forward from there. People power. You know, they have all these laws they're making. There's so many of these bylaws and rules and regulations and statutes and legislations and things that are being made at the moment that are absolutely desecrating the Australian people and their rights. And you know, everyone's talking about it and getting flustered about it and like, oh, they're doing this and they're doing that. Well, yeah, they're just writing pieces of paper. They've got no lawful authority. They're nothing. But the only thing that gives them authority or power is the people. So as soon as the people are aware of what's going on, and you would really have to be deeply asleep to not see and notice something going on, even in the mainstream media. Like, we just see, you know, our government giving away all of our money while Australia is in dire need of assistance, you know, all over the country. And, you know, people are aware that something is wrong, but they're not sure how to deal with it and where to go. So that's what we're trying to do here, or what I'm trying to do, and other people are trying to do is really trying to share the information that needs to be shared. We really need to be sharing. If you're watching this and you haven't shared it, please share it. If you do nothing else about this, please share it, because there might be someone else out there, one other person out there that might see it, that may take action, that may just change this country, may just steer this ship in the direction we need it to go. We're not a ship. We're not on a ship. We're on the land. I shouldn't call it a ship. Mandy leaves. External power is not real. Internal power is real. Well, the problem is that physical power is real. External power is real in this physical world. So it is real, and we are living in this situation that is a real situation, and it is a tyrannical situation. It is a government in exile. We are being run by a foreign corporation. There's no doubt about it, and that's sort of where we're at. But until people wake up or start to realise and ask questions and look for information, then we're all in trouble. Well, the ones that don't anyway. I'm not, because I'm a sovereign. And I don't infringe upon other people's rights. I don't harm other people. I don't tell lies. I don't deceive people. I just tell it how it is. I put the truth out there. And the reason people listen to it is because it's true. And they feel it because they know it's true. Because it feels right. Because it is right. Veronica, what do you think about banning smoking in the building you rent? Now strata laws infringe upon our own private property rights. Well, I'd just be looking at the strata laws. I'd be looking at their validity and where do they get their origin. Are they valid? Do they have royal assent? If they don't, send them a letter. You know, ask them, what's this law? How is it authorised? Before you get caught smoking in there, before they send you infringement, question them. Say, all right, well, you've put this law, I disagree, show me the validation and show me why I'm subject to it. And if you can't do that, then I'm not subject to it. So just send them a letter. What would you want to send them? I'll just send them a letter and just ask them the question. You know, it doesn't even need to be formal. But just write up a letter, or correspondence, I should say, and forward it to them with your questions and ask them. Ask them for the Act, the section in the Act, and the proclamation certificate to the Act. Elizabeth, I have a debt, they say, and I do not owe them anything. I'm not sure who you're talking about, but yeah, I would just write them a letter and ask them, you know, what is this debt? Where's the contract? Where'd the debt come from? And why am I liable to pay the debt? You know, if there's no contract between me and your corporation, why are you charging me in the first place? And then let them know that, you know, if they wish to continue to argue this point with you, then you're going to charge them whatever your fee is per hour, whatever it takes you to do the research, whatever it takes you to write the letter. All of it, put it in there. Whatever your fees are, let them know. If you want to correspond with me after this first letter, this is what the price is going to be. And then you have to charge that to them. Elizabeth, no greater power than above. Exactly right. We are all humbled by, we're all created by that. We're all humbled by that. Legalise it. Hey Lee, hey Mick, Chloe, hello. Hey Renee. Robert Stevens, do you think cannabis should be legal or is prohibition working? Robert, I think that any human being has the right to go and consume any plant that's growing out there that he chooses without regulation by the state. And this isn't my belief, this is the law. Any human being, if there is no corpus delicti, if I smoke a joint and I haven't harmed anyone, then I haven't broken the law. It's that simple. If these people want to put regulations on that which our Creator provided us, for whatever reasons they have, probably because it stops the pharmaceutical companies making money, because of its benefits, its known benefits, its proven, scientifically proven benefits. But I'm definitely an advocate for plant medicines. Veronica, thank you. Thank you for your support. Thank you everyone for watching and for your support and for your time. I know it's a long video, but it really is very important information. And if, you know, we take this to the courts and then they do not follow the law to the letter of the law, well then it becomes a different issue, and then I'm not sure of the avenues from there. But I am aware that there are a lot of people in this country who are discontent and upset with the current leadership. And I use that term really loosely. I wouldn't call it leadership. The current dictatorship. You know, there are a lot of people in this country that are not happy. Especially in the fact that our politicians are signing over basically all the assets which, you know, we don't own anyway. So that's another topic. Danielle, my awareness now is that all our property rights are handed over via the birth certificate application process, and when we don't claim it back when we become of age, it is still held by the system under bailment. Until bailment is successfully revoked, we cannot claim any true sovereignty. Well, that's interesting, because what I've read in the Oxford Australian Law Dictionary when it comes to contracts is that for any let's have a look actually. It'll just be a lot easier and clearer if I read it from the book here. Consideration. So the Oxford Australian Law Dictionary contract An agreement or promise between two or more parties that the law sees as being legally enforceable. An agreement or promise between two or more parties. I did not agree to my birth certificate ever. So I'm not sure where they're getting their information, but I have claimed my sovereignty, and I am a sovereign. And if they wish to, if anyone wishes to argue that, they're more than welcome to let me know and to take me to court. And I'll be happy to argue this in any court. Well, any court of record. Anyway, for the law to find that a contract exists between parties, it must contain the essential elements of a contract. That an offer was made, the offer was accepted, there was an intention to be bound, the parties paid some form of valuable consideration for the promise, and the parties had the capacity or contract. The parties had the capacity to contract. I would suggest that when I am an infant and I've just been born, I do not have the capacity to contract at all. And the promise or agreement was expressed with the requisite certainty and completeness. So there you go. If they're claiming a contract, I'm happy to argue that in a court of record, anytime, any day of the week. Just send me the date. And you know, there may be something I don't know about as well. Daniel or Danielle. I'm sorry, I don't know if it's Daniel or Danielle, and I can't see your profile picture. And what you're saying may be absolutely correct. There may be things that I'm sure there are things that I don't know about, but under the contract and what they require, that is what it says. So yeah, but I will look up bailment. Actually, I'm going to write that down. Bailment. Thank you for that. Hey Leon. Hey Aline. Alright, I think this video has gone for long enough, so I'm going to cut it there because I know that people, when they are thinking about looking at a video, they look at the time and they decide whether they have that much time to put into this video or not. And I'm aware that most people do not want to watch a video that goes for an hour or an hour and a half. But you know, this information cannot be compacted into a 3-minute video. This is really important information that must be clear and concise, and it must be given the time that it deserves. Daniel or Danielle, how can most be sovereign when most have assigned that sovereignty over to an elected representative? So it's a good question. And look, every single sovereign also has the capacity to contract, and that is in a couple of the conventions I've been reading. But the sovereign also has the capacity to contract. So just because he contracts with or gives authority to a representative, you know, he's not giving away his sovereignty. Just because he authorizes someone else to act on his behalf, it doesn't mean he gives up his rights as a sovereign. Ever. He doesn't give up his rights just because he consents and allows someone else to act on his behalf. I mean, who in their right mind would do that? And I don't think that's written anywhere in the law. It is written that the sovereign has the capacity to contract outside of that as well. It's just like if you've got a driver's license and you require a driver's license in order to conduct commerce on the road, when you're not conducting commerce, you're a sovereign. So why do you need? You're not subject to the same rules. If you're not conducting commerce, you're sovereign. So whether you've got a license or not, you can still be a sovereign. But if you're conducting commerce or you're making money on the road, then you come under the jurisdiction of the license. But if you're not conducting commerce, then you're a sovereign, because you only need to get that license to conduct commerce. Just because you want to conduct commerce doesn't mean you give up your rights to be sovereign. The sovereign created the laws. You know, how can the sovereign who creates the laws then come under the laws that it created? It's an impossibility. You know, it's the same with the Constitution. It's the same with anything. In order for anything, any act, any constitution, anything to come into existence, there must be people, human beings there to create that. And those human beings must be sovereign in order to do that. They're self-governing, they're self-determining in order to write that. Before that, everyone was a sovereign. And the sovereigns wrote this to protect themselves from the government that they allowed to come and serve them. But now the government is no longer serving, and they're just standing on. The people who are paid to serve us have now turned us into the servants, allegedly. But anyway, good question, Danielle. Thank you for asking. Thank you, Sean. Hey, Donna. Hey, Charlie. Hey, Natalie. If you've only just tuned in, go back to the start, please, and watch this video. It's probably one of the most important that I've done when it comes to representing yourself and how to represent yourself in accordance with my understanding. And it may not all be absolutely correct, but all the stuff that I've read off, you know, out of the dictionaries and out of the acts is all accurate. But yeah, please go back to the start and watch it, and please share, please share, please share. Thank you all again for your time and attention, and yeah, Catherine Ann. Yeah, please send me a message, Catherine. I probably I don't know if I'll get onto it tonight, because I've got to eat and stuff. But send me a message and we'll have a chat. The judiciary system is hypocritical. Yeah, look, I mean, the problem that we're having, and what I'm seeing, because I've watched a lot of these videos of people going into court, and a lot of people they're going in there and they're charged up with this energy, because we know that, you know, we're being deceived, so people are upset, and they're going in there with this charged energy, and they're going in there with this righteousness. And they're not understanding what the court is there for. The court is there for you. The court is there for the sovereign. But the sovereign can't, if you want to be a sovereign, you can't rely on any judge or magistrate to make the rulings for you. You've got to make the rulings yourself. You've got to make up the suit. You've got to do it all yourself. You put it all in, and they basically just are there as an adjudicator. But if you look up a court of record is really important to understand. Now, in some of the acts, they only have, I think, section or subsection 1 and 4. But when you look at all of the 5 subsections of what a court of record is, it's not in there. Bear with me for one moment. too many tabs. Sorry, bear with me. Record. The Australian Oxford Law Dictionary actually doesn't even have all of the requirements or what an actual court of record is. It just says here, the formal archive and public register of orders made by a court. A court of record is a court with the power to punish for contempt of its processes. That means punish the others as well for contempt. And the judgment of a court of record in a civil action changes the cause of action to a matter of record. But there's five meanings. There's 5 subsections to a court of record. Subsections is the wrong word, but my mind is blank. It's full. Look it up anyway. Yeah, look it up on Google and look up a court of record, because that is basically the definition of a court of record. Takes power away from the magistrate. The magistrate is there to sit as an adjudicator. He cannot make a judicial determination. And if he does, then you are not a sovereign. If you allow a judge to make a determination, you're not being a sovereign at all. You are surrendering your sovereignty to, and you're allowing the king to make the call. So if a judge makes an order against you, it is up to you to then challenge and revoke that order. Whatever the terminology is, I'm not sure. I really want to find this court of record because it is really interesting, but please look it up. It is one of the most important things to be in a court of record and to understand what it means to open up a court of record. To be sovereign, you know, you've got to do all the work and not allow them to do the work, because then you are not acting in your sovereign capacity. Anyway, thanks guys, thanks for watching. Please share again, please share, and happy weekend. I'll be doing some more videos soon. I've got my front camera is working again, which is great. Thanks Danny down at SOS in Coffs Harbour, a good mate of mine. We served in the army together. He also employs one of the homeless dudes that I know there to help him renovate the shop, which was really beautiful of him. So thanks Danny, and thanks again all for watching. And yeah, please share. Namaste.